Have you ever heard the phrase, it's lonely at the top? We're going to talk about this and what that means today and two sides of that coin because if you've been in leadership for long, you probably know that if it's lonely at the top, you're not doing leadership right. And that's the phrase we use because leadership should be done together, and you're bringing people up and you're bringing people up to the leadership tower, leadership journey, and the mountaintop of leadership. You're getting people where they're supposed to go. And so really you have a team and you're developing a team and you're developing your team members. And so really, if you're doing that, why should it be lonely? Welcome to my channel. My name is Luke Sorensen, and we're going to be talking about leadership and different leadership myths and realities that we're going to be dealing with as leaders. So I appreciate you being here today. Let's talk about this. If leadership feels heavy, you're not broken. You're carrying what others can't or won't. And we call that the burden of command. The burden of command, if you were to look it up, you might find some content on it. A lot of it's military based in the concept of you are responsible as the leader. You are responsible for whatever decision that you make, and it impacts your team, it impacts their families, it impacts so much more. It impacts the mission. And you need to make the best decision. But we all know that in leadership, sometimes there's just no good options. And so, whatever decision you make, whatever the outcomes are, you have to own it, and you get to own it. And that's part of the privilege of leadership. It's also part of the curse of leadership. It is part of that burden of command, and we're going to, just like it implies, it's a burden. So when we talk about it's lonely at the top, the misnomer of leadership is always glory, and it's always like the success and the promotion and the titles and all the perks of leadership. Well, with all the perks of leadership, and by the way, there's probably not as many perks of leadership as we think they are when we first get into leadership. There's a lot of weight that comes with it. There's a lot of responsibility for the hearts and minds of your people, the mission, the alignment, the culture. You get to own it all. And by the way, where there's failure, you have to own the failure, and where there's success, you have to give away the success. So I'm not trying to undersell leadership. What I'm trying to do is embrace the reality that we need to face, is that sometimes it's going to feel lonely, and that doesn't mean you're failing. Every one of us are going to go through times where leadership and what we're going through and the heaviness of what we're going through is going to burden us because it's emotionally draining. It doesn't mean it's not fulfilling. It doesn't mean we don't love it. It doesn't mean we don't love our people. And by the way, all of us approach it differently. Some of us are extroverts, and we're going to process it differently and process it with people. Some of us are not extroverts. We're introverts, and we're going to process it differently. So when I'm talking about the burden of command, there's the blessings of leadership and the perks of leadership, but there is also the burden of leadership, and that is the responsibility. So I want to talk about a couple things when it comes to leadership. John Maxwell says this: leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. If you've been a student of leadership at all, hopefully you've heard that. When we define leadership, we really look to that definition of leadership as influence, specifically to get a desired result through people. But that's really, to just hone it in, leadership is influence. But when influence does come at a price. There's a sacrifice you give when it comes to leadership, and that's the fact that you're now responsible. You now are accountable to the opportunity and the influence. And by the way, I'm not talking about title. I'm not talking about promotions and now you have a new title, a new responsibility, though that could be part of it. I'm talking about you're a person who's going to pour in and be a part of the development of other people and be a part of the journey and be a part of influencing the result to get the best result, best outcome for the mission, for the team, or whatever venue that you're in. But let's talk about the myth. People think that leadership is about perks, corner offices, being liked, which those would be great if those were the only part, or sometimes the part. Sometimes your influence, your leadership does not come with a corner office. It doesn't come with a bunch of perks, but it does come with a lot of responsibility. It comes with the hearts and minds of people that you are now responsible for, whether you like it or not. If you are influencing people, you are being a part of their life journey, and you need to own that. So that being said, let's walk through this. In reality, leadership has to do with some late nights and tough choices. And by the way, not always is it late nights. Like some of us work the 9 to 5 and get to check out of work. But when you're dealing with people, you're always aware of what's going on. And by the way, you need to be mindful of it. Don't bring work home. There are days you will, though. Every one of us has had a hard day at the office where we've had to deal with something heavy, and there might have been a termination or a separation. There might have been a write up or whatever disciplinary action your company might go through. But the process is not always fun. Developing people, hard conversations, and sometimes you'll carry that home. It's carrying stress others never see, and I really want to talk about this. As a new leader, you could be feeling it right now, and nobody on your team is feeling that. Hence the lonely at the top conversation. You could be doing leadership absolutely correct in your role and still be carrying the weight of the fact that there's some things that you don't get discussed with the team that reports to you. And maybe it's not available that you might be the owner of your organization, and you might not be able to talk about it with really anybody. And I highly recommend counseling and coaching on the outside of whatever you're doing on the outside of your company, so you always have another perspective pouring in and ultimately be able to add value to you. Here's the other part of the reality: it's being misunderstood and sometimes criticized for doing what's right. Sometimes you're going to make a call that no one likes. Sometimes you're going to make a call that is the right decision to maybe separate from someone or to not hire the person they want. There's going to be some decision that you are going to hold the line on, and other people are going to disagree, either because they don't know what you know, they don't know the whole picture, they're just making judgments, and you're going to feel the heat from that. Hence the lonely at the top. It doesn't mean you're failing as a leader just because people aren't able to be where you're at in understanding. Some of you are in roles where you are the only person that gets to carry the burden of what you might be dealing with in leadership. It doesn't mean you're not empowering your team. It doesn't mean you don't have people that you've developed, but it really does mean that you don't have the ability to just spread information everywhere and have every conversation and gossip about it to everybody else. That's not your place. That's not really the place for any leader. So Brené Brown puts it this way: vulnerability is not winning or losing, it's having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. And that's the burden, is that you still have to show up. You still have to be somewhat put together. And to be honest, as a leader, you still have to model it. We'll talk about that in a second, because it's important to understand there's the burden of command, but then there's also the understanding that you have got to model it, and you've got to be in place as a leader. People are looking for you to see what your response is going to be, how you handle this criticism, this tension, these decisions, the ultimate aspect that even though you're going to be accountable, you're going to be held accountable to things that you didn't even touch because you're responsible. By the way, with that comes freedom. If you read Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, I highly recommend it. There is freedom with the discipline. There's freedom with owning your world when it comes to taking extreme ownership. It still comes with the burden of command. So as we look through this, I'm going to talk about this, five facets of the burden. So let's talk about five facets of the burden of command. I want you to be ready for this. I want you to train and develop your next leader with this, because it's a conversation that we're not having enough with future leadership. We're selling them the role like, hey, it's influence, and there's the awesome responsibility of being influential, and it comes with a little bit of authority and a little bit of, you're earning the right to lead people. And if you know the five levels of leadership, highly recommend. Great book for you to read. But when we look at this, let's look at the five facets of the burden of command. Number one, accountability. You own outcomes even when you didn't touch the work. You say, how is that fair? Well, you're the leader. Everything rises and falls on leadership. It just does. And so if you're the leader, you got to own it. No matter what, you have to own it. So sometimes you're going to step into a new role, and you are now responsible for the outcome, irrelevant of who was in the role before you, or if there was a leader in the role before you. You just, congratulations, it's just where it's at. Secondly, the concept here, or this proverb says this: the captain is responsible for the ship, whether it sinks or sails. You are ultimately responsible for your ship. Own it. Here's another thing. So number one is accountability. Number two is credit transfer. You give away the credit when things go right. That's cool. When things go right, you got to give credit to the team, to the people. And it doesn't mean you don't get to be a part of it because your success is now tied to the team. So when the team wins, you win. Rising tide raises all ships. So if you can get your team to succeed and take those wins, you get the credit. Congratulations. You're never going to give yourself the credit. You give it to your team. When someone says, "Hey man, this was a great deliverable. Your team came down and got the job done," or you came down, like great job. You need to deflect that to your team, and your team needs to hear that early and often, where when somebody says, "Hey, great work, this is awesome," hey, it's the team. I've got this person, and give specific compliments and credit to the where credit is due. Secondly, you take responsibility when things go wrong. You're like, what? I got to give away the credit when things go right, and I got to take the credit when things go wrong. You take the responsibility. Yes, it's yours. You got to own it. And here's a thought. Um, Leaders spend more time finding the best people than proving themselves. Leaders spend more time finding the best in people than proving themselves. Your job is not to prove that you're the leader. Your is to prove that you can develop the team that can show up and get the job done better than anybody else. You are proving them, not you. If you prove them as a team, if you get the results as a team, then your credibility as a leader will rise. Because if you can get results through people, influence, you're a leader. Congratulations. By the way, pressure is a privilege. So don't miss the fact that yes, there's a lot of responsibility, and there's that weight of, man, I got to give away the credit all the time, and then I got to take responsibility when things go wrong. Yes. Welcome to leadership. Sounds so great, doesn't it? By the way, it is a privilege. It comes with a lot of fulfilling things, but I want to give you the dark side of leadership here that we don't talk about. So talk about this with your team. Number three, barrier removal, right? Leaders clear the path so the team can thrive. Your job is to make sure that your team's got nothing in the way. As much as possible, you're going to remove barriers. You're going to see things that are ahead. You're going to see things that are further ahead faster so that you can move them so your team can keep moving with the mission. Because again, the team win is your win. If your team is not winning, you are not winning. If you are winning and your team is not winning, you are not winning. So as we're looking at this, leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those that are in your charge. That's a Simon Sinek quote. Leadership is not about being in charge. It's not just the I'm the boss. I'm the boss. Just to clarify, if you always got to tell people you're the boss, you're probably not the boss. And you say, well, I own this company. You want to make sure it's clear. If you've got to remind people that you're the owner of the company, you got to tell them all the time because they forgot, it means you're probably not taking ownership of your own company. Different conversation, but take it for what it's worth. Modeling behavior, number four. So we're talking about the five burdens. Modeling behavior, the standards you tolerate are the standards you teach. And by the way, you teach by people watching. And I'm a huge proponent of leading by example, but also I'm a huge proponent of people understanding that there are certain roles as a leader that even though you should be willing to do, that's not what you're getting paid to do. So talk about you as a new manager. Sometimes we do this thing where we like to kind of just prove that we can do everything. I'll clarify. I'm happy to clean the toilets. I don't have any problem cleaning the bathrooms, stocking the shelves, making sure that the team's taken care of. That's not what I get paid to do in my role. I get paid to do things that I'm supposed to be doing that are niche to who I am as a leader based on my skill sets. And I get paid well to do that. If the owner of the company that I worked for walked in and I'm sitting there cleaning the toilets, he would probably have an issue with that. Not because he just, oh, well, Luke's being a servant leader and cleaning the toilets. No, because he pays me to do things that I'm supposed to be doing that other people cannot do. So be willing to do everything, be jumping to it, be a part of it, but sometimes there's people that are supposed to be doing different things, such as cleaning the toilet, taking out the trash, vacuuming the floors. Those are things that really anybody can do, and they should do. Doesn't mean you don't do them, but also is law of priorities. What's required, what's going to give the greatest return, and what's going to be the most rewarding. While vacuuming might be rewarding, you need to go to what's going to give you the greatest return. As a leader, it's developing people, it's improving the systems and processes by being involved in it and building your team, building your results, building the outcomes, right? So be aware of this. Marcus Aurelius said this: waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Just be one. So we're looking at like modeling in this aspect of you need to take on the burden of modeling. If you wonder why your team shows up late every day and you're rarely on time, or you have a different clock in time because you're always later than them, because the perks of leadership come with I can stop for coffee in the morning and the team's going to do their job, and well, hopefully they are. But if that's your style of leadership, you're going to find that people are going to follow, they're going to tolerate what you tolerate. So if lackadaisical or lack of discipline is what you tolerate, guess what you're going to have? A undisciplined, lazy team or lackadaisical team. So model it. You'll find this, and I know different companies have uniform policies, but you'll find this happen when you start, maybe if you're in a company where maybe there is a uniform policy, but there's a dress up uniform policy in the sense of you either wear the uniform or dress better than uniform. Just start dressing up. Watch to see if your team starts modeling. Like if you are the leader that they're following, if you start leveling up your dress, your professionalism, your approach, you'll find the team does as well. Now, I understand you got different leaders who are in different industries, if you would, and going to the job site and in a tuxedo is probably not the most wise decision. So that's not the point there. You might model professional behavior that has nothing to do with wearing a tuxedo. It might just be how clean your tool bags are, how clean your vehicle is, or what you tolerate, because Ed Milet says what you don't hate, what you don't hate, you tolerate. And so the concept is, what are you allowing? What are you modeling? What behavior do you want your team to model? Then do that, because if you have to model it, right? So, and number five is this: loneliness with integrity. You say, well, what is loneliness with integrity? You can't always share everything you know, and that's what makes leadership heavy. There's different conversations that you have with people on your team, with HR. There's different behind the scenes decisions that are going on that not everybody gets to be a part of. And it doesn't mean that you can't have conversations with people that are supposed to be involved. But be very careful, because a lot of times that leans into gossip and opinions, and there's just really no place for gossip in the workplace. There's no place for gossip everywhere, anywhere. It's just not a good thing to be going on. But the weight that you carry is the fact that there's decisions that you're making based on information that you have, that the information never can be conveyed to everybody else. You're going to make decisions based on what is in front of you. You're going to make the best decision for the team, the best decision for the mission, the best decision for the families. Thinking broader, this every decision affects more people, and sometimes the decision you're going to make is not something that really can be just put out to the rest of the world, and it's going to be heavy. It's going to be heavy because you can't really talk to many people about it. It's going to be heavy because you're going to be judged based on information that they know or believe, or the lies that they were told by other individuals, or the opinions they were told by other individuals, or the gossip at the water cooler. Just these things are heavy, because you can't always go around just kind of always having to worry about, like, well, if you knew what I knew, you don't get to do this as a leader. That doesn't work that way. So kind of take it in stride. Mark Cole, the CEO of Maxwell Leadership, says this: leadership is lonely when you carry the weight alone. Hear this: leadership is lonely when you carry the weight alone, but powerful when you carry it with intention. You're going to carry the weight. It's called the burden of command. And what is crucial is that you have it with intention. Sometimes you're going to make decisions that are hard, and there's going to be outcomes that you can't control. There's going to be people. There's going to be fallout. Right? Carry that weight with intention. You're the leader. Carry it. It's okay. You can do this. It's the burden of command. It is the privilege of leadership. It is one of the things that is most valuable in the privilege of leadership, is the fact that you get to. And while it feels like quite a burden, it is quite a privilege. And while it is the dark side of leadership that we don't really talk about, it is absolutely a privilege to carry the burden of command. So as we look at practical application, I want to give you these three things, real simple here. How do you carry the burden without burning out? Here's three practices for you. How do I carry the burden of command without burning out? That sounds like really heavy burden. It is. It is. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's tough. It's leadership. If it was easy, everyone would do it. If it was easy, everyone would do it well. This is what sets us apart as dynamic leaders and influential leaders and great leaders, is that we're willing not only to take it, but we're going to take it and carry it well. And then the goal is not to burn out in the process. So let's talk about this. Number one, own it fast and debrief slow. Take responsibility quickly, then walk the team through the lessons learned. If you can ultimately say, hey, we made a mistake. If I can raise my hand, we have a policy on one of the teams I'm on. We're like, hey, if you make a mistake, raise your hand and say, I made a mistake. I done messed up, Aaron. I made a mistake. Does anybody else want to learn from this mistake? Now, it doesn't mean we get to abdicate our role in the mistake. We need to make sure we take ownership of the mistake if it's our mistake. But I want to really lean into the fact that if you can allow other people to learn from the mistake and make sure that maybe we can write an SOP, maybe we can create a policy, maybe we can just be aware that this is an area we need to watch out for in the future. Suddenly, it's a lesson. It's not just a mistake. And if you can learn from your mistakes, that's part of growth. In fact, it's the required part of growth is learning from the mistakes, hopefully from the mistakes of other people, but you got to learn from experience, right? So in that process, own it fast and debrief slow. Own it fast, take ownership, but the debrief part is how do we actually walk people through this so that they can learn and make sure that we can avoid this pitfall in the future in the process of owning it, right? Number two, give credit publicly, take blame privately. He says, what do you mean? Protect your people and shape their confidence. When you give the credit publicly, whether it's an email response, maybe someone congratulates you and you're going to tag your entire team in the response saying, hey, by the way, this is all on the team. They got the job done. They hit the parameters, whatever it is, because your people are working hard. Hopefully they are. If they're not, you got different problems, right? If your people are working hard, at least give them the credit and they will respect and follow you more. You'll get a better result from people that know that you're going to give them the credit than people. If you've ever watched this, where a team is watching a leader take the credit for their hard work, that is not a leader. That is a lousy positional individual who is losing the influence of his team. So give credit publicly, right? Take blame privately, and what that means is ultimately I'm going to take the blame, and if I have to deal with accountability aspects of it, that's going to be a private conversation. But in the process of it, you need to take the blame. So when it comes down, when the heat comes down, I'm not gonna pass the blame on to them. I'm going to take it within, and I'm also not going to blame the team publicly with that. I'm going to take the blame privately, right? Number three, guard your capacity. And this is crucial. Your sleep is crucial. Your exercise, your health is crucial. Your time for reflection is crucial. You can't carry the weight if you're already crushed. And so some of you are burning the midnight fuel when you really should be prioritizing rest. And I do understand there's a lot going on. I am currently filming this at 11:47 in the evening on a Friday night, just because this was on my heart today. Today was a heavy day, and not necessarily just for me, but for the team that I'm on, just because the burden of command. Something went down and we had to make a tough decision. And I don't like the decision, but we got to own the decision, right? It's heavy in leadership. By the way, I'm appreciative of the boss that I work for, the leader that I work for, taking the weight of something that is just really heavy today. It's a dark day. So in that process, you need to be very, very aware that yes, there's a lot of things pulling you. I've got, church things going on and community group things going on and my kids' school things going on and work things going on and working, trying to start this side gig type thing. Be mindful that if you are not prioritizing your sleep, your nutrition, your exercise, if you're not prioritizing the things that are going to keep you healthy, you will end up prioritizing the things that will keep you alive. So just be very, very careful that you need in the process of decision making, make sure you're making it from a place of health, if you would. And by the way, health could be the reason reflection is in there is because sometimes you are going to need to process your leadership and process the what you're going through. You need to do that in a healthy manner. Today, when I left work, I drove for about an hour and a half. I don't have an hour and a half drive home, but I drove for a bit. I needed to. It was important to me to be able to wind down and decompress. And then when I got home, I did some more decompression. I goofed off with my kids a little bit and played some stupid video games. You say, well, you play video games. That's not very leadership style. No, it's what I needed to do today to make sure that I could decompress and process some of the heavy weight of the burden of command. It's a privilege of leadership. It's the opportunity that you have to make sure that you stay in a place of leadership. I promise it is very difficult to pour from an empty cup. And as a leader, we're constantly pouring out to other people. If you are not protecting what matters, what is crucial, what is imperative, you will end up paying the cost of that. So here's the concept as we close out. Some days leadership is applause, most days it's weight. But the fact that it's heavy means it matters What you do matters as a leader. And I know that I don't know you and I don't know what industry you're in. And some of you are in a place where you're working in McDonald's, and some of you are in a place where you're working in a factory, or you're working on a team at Amazon, or in construction. Whatever it is that you're doing, just understand you're impacting the lives of people, and what you do matters, not because it matters how many roofs you install or how many hamburgers we sell or those numbers are just not relevant to the fact that you're dealing with the hearts and minds of your people, your customers, and the people that really rely on you to be a good leader. Everyone deserves to be led well. Make sure that you are leading your team well and taking this in stride. If you're a new leader, don't run from the burden of command. Lean into it. It's the cost of shaping people, building culture, and creating a future. It is crucial for you to lean into the burden of command, not in the martyrdom aspect, like, oh me, oh my, I have to take this. No, no, no. You need to lean into it with a little bit of pride, a little bit of confidence, a very much aware of what you're doing. If you're picking up the burden of command, I want to congratulate you. I want to say, keep leading well. Don't give up. Don't quit. And on your hardest days, don't let your hard days in leadership define you, because you are defined by more than just your bad days. You're defined by how you respond to things and how you take things in stride, and that's crucial. You're not supposed to be the hero. You're supposed to make more heroes. You're supposed to be the one that's empowering others and developing others. And one of the absolute beauties of leadership is the ability for you to go out and raise up other leaders and make them the hero of your story. You don't get to be the hero of your story. You're a leader. You get to empower others. You get to help people create their story, and then you get to be the one to help tell that person's story when they didn't even know they were a leader and they didn't even know they had a story. You get to be that cheerleader. You get to be that person that develops people. And I promise it is absolutely worth it, because while the burden of command is heavy, the fulfillment and the sense of significance that you feel when you are developing people and getting them to the next level and getting them from wherever they are to wherever they're supposed to be, when you get the best version of them out of them and it shows up, it is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it is absolutely fulfilling and worth it all. But you have to carry the burden to get it there. So um, that's all for today. I want to give you this. Please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching today, and thank you for taking the time to really get to this point. If you got to this point, then I just want to say thank you, because to be honest, I don't know if I would have gotten to this point. It was a burden watching this video to this, 27 minutes in. So I just want to say thank you so much for following the channel, and look forward to giving you some get more value from leadership as we develop these things going forward. If you have a question, if you need anything, please feel free to reach out. Would love to serve you in any way that I can.